We just got a big new feature for the PlayStation 5. The PS5 Slim is here in the US, and we're 2 years into the PS5's life cycle, but is it truly worth it? We're gonna find out in today's episode of PSReady. But first up, we gotta talk about all these horror franchises coming back, because we're adding yet another one to the list, and I could not be more excited. So let's just do a quick catalog of everything coming out. In December, we're getting the Callisto Protocol. Early next year, we're getting Resident Evil 4 Remake and Dead Space, and then later next year, we're getting the remake of Silent Hill 2. And then sometime in 2023, we're also going to get Alone in the Dark, and I would be willing to bet money that we'll get Resident Evil 9 pretty soon after Resident Evil 4 Remake. Like, I'm assuming that 2024 is when we'll see Resident Evil 9, which is pretty crazy to consider because we have not had a lot of horror games to play for a very long time. And we've also heard rumors that The Evil Within 3 is in development by the guy who was the director of The Evil Within 2, and I could not be more excited for that as well. So we've got Capcom and Konami back in the mix with their own games, their classic PS1 era horror games that everyone loves so much. But where is Square Enix with theirs? Which honestly, I wouldn't be too upset at you if you didn't really know about it, because I didn't learn about it until I was in high school. It's called Parasite Eve, and yeah, it's essentially like Square Enix's version of Resident Evil or the original Silent Hill. And the only one I've actually played is on PSP. It's called The Third Birthday. I didn't even know it was a Parasite Eve game, but it was really cool and a lot of fun. So the way that this has come to light is that Square Enix registered a trademark for a game called Symbiogenesis. It really wouldn't be a Square Enix game if it didn't have a terrible title that didn't even make sense. But this is actually a word, and according to Gamatsu, the word means the merging of two separate organisms to form a single new organism, and this concept basically formed the basis of the original 1995 game Parasite Eve. And also, because this is Square Enix and they're the people who made Parasite Eve, it's basically like putting 2 and 2 together and getting 4 and realizing, yeah, Parasite Eve is also coming back. Now, I'm going to be real. If I had to rank all of these games in terms of excitement, Resident Evil 4 is at the top, followed by the Callisto Protocol, just because that's something new from the original creator of Dead Space. Then you've got the Dead Space remake, because after that gameplay, all of my skepticism is gone. And after that, it's something like Alone in the Dark and Parasite Eve. But regardless, I'm excited for all of these games. So if you're a survival horror fan like I am, you should probably be excited as well. All of these games look like they're going to be pretty much guaranteed slam dunks, and I don't think we've A, had a lineup like this since the PS1, and B, I don't think we're going to have one for a very long time. But next up, we got to answer a very important question. Is the PS5 worth it? Because we're almost 2 years into the console's life cycle, and I have been seeing quite a few articles basically saying, no, you should just stick with your PS4 for now and just wait because the PS4 is still getting games. And I don't even want to get into it because it's such a stupid argument that I don't even really understand it. Like, if you already have a PS4, right, I feel like you can be totally content with that for at least a year or so more, and then maybe you can get the PS5 Slim or Pro when that comes out. But if you're sitting there right now and you've got money to burn and you don't have a game console and your options are the PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation 4, I don't want to be too mean, but I think you would be kind of dumb if you ended up going with the PS4, because A, it's not really that much cheaper at around $300, so only $200 less than the PS5, but for that $200 savings, you're getting a console that can barely push 30 FPS. I know a lot of articles are out there saying that God of War Ragnarok runs super well on the PlayStation 4, but for every one of games like that, like God of War Ragnarok, that are optimized for that console, you've got an ocean of games that shouldn't be released on that console because they're barely running right on the PlayStation 5. And also, with reports that Sony is bumping up the production of the PS5 by a magnitude of 4 times, it seems like this thing is going to get extremely easy to find in the coming months. And yes, I understand where some of these articles are coming from, in the sense that, yeah, we haven't really had a game that pushes the console to its limits just yet, but when your options are play a game at like 900p max and 30 FPS as its cap, but it never really hits that and runs around 25 to 30 at all times, or you have a console that can play games at 60 frames per second, and when it does have to play games at 30 FPS, it's usually a locked 30 FPS and it's a 4K resolution, it's honestly like a no-brainer situation in my opinion, because it's the best way to play games at this point in time. And as time continues to move forward, which, spoiler alert, it will, the PS4 is going to continue to get worse and worse. This video is sponsored by Aura. Did you know you're 3 times more likely to be a victim of cybercrime than home burglary? robbery. And unfortunately for us gamers, cybercrime committers love targeting video games. These companies are prime targets because they store a bunch of personal data, but they don't have to adhere to the same security rules and concerns as banks or hospitals. Aura is cool because it takes stuff like identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and an antivirus software app and combines it all into one convenient service. You probably have at least one of these services already, but not having them all is like leaving your house and locking the front door but leaving the back door wide open and like 3 windows. The cool thing about Aura is it shows you how many times your passwords have appeared on the dark web, and I've used it to check this a couple times, and yeah, my passwords were all over the place on the dark web. Protect your family and yourself from identity theft online at https://aura.com/PSReady. And it's also linked right below this video in the description. And if you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link, and you can see how many times your passwords or your family passwords have shown up on the dark web. And when you go sign up, make sure you let me know how many of your passwords have shown up on the dark web in the comments below. It's kind of like golf where we're trying to get to the lowest number possible. Huge shout out to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the PlayStation news. Like with God of War Ragnarok specifically, your 2 options are play it at 30 FPS for $60 or play it at 60 FPS for $60 because you can get it in a bundle that's $60 more than just buying the PS5 console on its own. So you can pay the same price for the game that way if you don't have the console already and get a dramatically better experience on the PlayStation 5. I think that's the way to go wholeheartedly. But even so, paying $70 on the PlayStation 5 for a dramatically better experience, I don't really have a problem with that either, because when I was a kid, games were $50 and now they're $70, and like they haven't increased in price enough, which is why you're seeing developers make so many free-to-play games with the microtransactions, because they got to make up the dramatically increased cost of producing these games in the first place. So 2 years in, is the PS5 worth it? Well, I'll tell you in a future video, because I'm going to do a huge, long video breaking down everything about the console that we've experienced over the past 2 years. But as of right now, if you're sitting on the fence, like, I don't know if I want a PlayStation 5 this holiday season, just buy the PlayStation 5. You're going to like it a whole lot more than a PlayStation 4. Like, you can't even get the Pro anymore. Your first priority should always be buying what you can afford, obviously. Like, don't go into debt for video games. That doesn't really seem like the smartest move. But second priority after that should be buying the best thing that's out there, right? Like, you always want to be future-proofed as much as possible with this stuff, because spoiler alert, Sony does not care about you and they will move on to the next thing as fast as they can. I mean, there's already rumors we're seeing the PS5 Pro next year. But yeah, speaking of buying a brand new PlayStation 5, we have some good updates on the PS5 Slim that is not being called the PS5 Slim, but is totally the PS5 Slim. The one that Austin and I cracked open just a couple months ago has now started showing up in the United States. And that's the first good news. But the second piece of good news is that you're able finally to just walk into Target or Walmart and buy this thing. You don't have to do store pickup. You don't have to order it online. You can just walk into the store and then just buy it like you would with any other console in the past. Honestly, I'm not super surprised that this is starting to happen, because we've seen with the Steam Deck that it went from being like 4 months out when you order it to being like you can order it right now and just have it shipped the following day, which is a great development for that machine that happened in less than a year. But if Valve is figuring out how to make that happen with their brand new console that they just hired a supply chain manager for, I feel like it's fair to assume that it was going to extend to Sony pretty damn quick. And also Microsoft. I mean, the floodgates were really open when we started seeing GPUs falling in price and being readily available everywhere. So yeah, you'll finally be able to get a PS5 by just walking into a store. But if you're someone who's kind of waiting for that Black Friday period or that Christmas period to see if there's a little bit of a discount, I would say definitely don't wait. Like, if you don't have a PS5 and somehow you're still looking for one and you're able to get one at Target or Walmart or Amazon or Best Buy, I would honestly say just pick it up now and say, Mom, give me $500 for Christmas this year or something, because I really want the PS5 and I don't believe you're going to be able to get it closer to Black Friday or Christmas. Because even when these things are super plentiful, you really start to see them sell out right around Christmas time, and then people are bummed out that they weren't able to get it, because getting something like a month before Christmas or 2 months before Christmas is a lot more fun than getting something even 2 days after Christmas. There's nothing worse than getting the big gift you want after Christmas has already passed, because all of the like nostalgic feelings and fun are gone. Like, guys, I'm projecting here a little bit, right? Like, after Christmas, I didn't get Fallout 3 the year it came out. It was like the one game I asked for. So my dad was like, oh, you got Christmas money? Let's go get it. So we we had to drive all the way out to Target, and there was a bunch of Christmas trees on the side of the road because people get rid of them really fast in Michigan. And then when we got there, they didn't even have the game. So I had to settle for Dead Space, which ended up being really cool. I love Dead Space. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But yeah, getting a game after Christmas or even a console after Christmas, not the best experience. So you should start looking right now. So in my last video, I talked about how March 8th, 2023 is when we're probably going to see the next PlayStation firmware update. It's going to be called PlayStation Firmware Update 7.0, and the biggest feature coming along with that is going to be full Discord integration on the PlayStation 5. I could not be more excited for that update, but that's around 5 months away. But right now, you can get a pretty cool update for your PlayStation 5 that adds a cool feature that I have been waiting for since like literally the PlayStation 3 days. So if you've had a PS3, a Vita, a PS4, or a PS5, you have definitely experienced this phenomenon where you go to the PlayStation Store, you type in a new game that you want to play, like Dead by Daylight, for example, and instead of showing you the actual game, all it shows you is literally every piece of DLC for that game. And on the PS4 and PS3, it was even worse because on top of that, you would see stuff like avatars and themes before you could actually find the game. So the easiest way I found to actually get to the game I was looking for was to click into one of those DLC packs and then scroll down to the part of the page that was like, click here to get the game you need to play this DLC. And that was super frustrating, and Sony has revamped the PlayStation Store so many times over the years, but never really fixed that. That is until now, because if you go on your phone and you go to the App Store and you update your PlayStation app and then you open it up and you type in Dead by Daylight, you are going to right away see the actual game Dead by Daylight. Yes, Sony, after all these years of fixing things like 1440p, adding in SSD support on the PlayStation 5, making it so you can sort your library by latest played, making it so you can sort your library by games that are actually playable on the PlayStation 5 and are also games that you just bought. They finally addressed one of the biggest, most annoying problems that the PlayStation Store has had from the very beginning. So really, all that leaves between now and the 7.0 PlayStation update is stuff like themes, a web browser, of course, full Discord integration, figuring out some way to not only copy Quick Resume from the Xbox Series X, but actually making it a usable feature that wasn't abandoned day one like it was on the Xbox Series X. I mean, even if they include like half of those features, it's really setting the PS5 up to have a really good 2023, because we got the one thing I personally really wanted, which was 1440p support on the PlayStation 5, and now we have so much cool stuff to look forward to between new games like Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine, but also stuff like the PlayStation VR 2, which is actually going to have some really cool games at launch and has been getting really exciting previews from people who are able to try it out. And then finally, the icing on the cake for me is the DualSense Edge, right? Like that controller is coming out January 26th. That's the first thing we're getting from PlayStation in 2023, followed by the PlayStation VR 2, I would guess. And then we're going to get the 7.0 update that includes Discord right at the beginning of March, all on top of games that look absolutely incredible like Dead Space Remake and Resident Evil 4 Remake. Like the first half of 2023 for PlayStation is going to be the best period I think the PS5 has had since it launched. And we've also heard that Final Fantasy 16 is supposed to be coming out in the first half of the year as well, and they kind of really need to start setting them up to have good moments like this that really put them in the press and remind people why they want a PlayStation 5, because it really looks like this Activision deal is going to go through. And while, yes, we are going to get Call of Duty and have all of these great exclusive features that we've had for years on the PlayStation 5 till at least 2027, I'm glad Sony is getting ahead of it by making sure that they have the PS5 primed to be the best console you can buy. I mean, when you look at this thing and you see that, yes, it has a Pro Controller. Yes, it can do 1440p. Yes, it can also do 4K. Yes, it can do 60 frames per second. Yes, it has a brand new VR headset that looks and runs incredible, especially when you compare it to the competition, which is like playing Xbox games over the cloud in VR, which to me is not a competition at all. If you're a PlayStation fan, you have a lot to be excited for, and I think that's pretty cool. And it all starts with this tiny feature that was added to the PlayStation phone app. So despite the fact that they're owned by Microsoft, Bethesda has supported the PS5 pretty dang well between games like Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, and while it looks like The Elder Scrolls 6 will not be coming to the PlayStation 5, they are not leaving it out with their brand new update to Fallout 4. Yeah, Bethesda announced that early next year, Fallout 4 is going to get an update for the PS5 and Xbox Series X and PC that not only smooths out a whole ton of bugs, which is great, it's adding in free content from the creation Generation Club, and also it's going to run at higher frame rates and higher resolutions on the next gen consoles. And that's like music to my ears, right? Like, I love Fallout 4. It's probably my most played RPG ever. When that game came out, I had just graduated college, and man, I played that game every night for months. I remember it came out at like the beginning of November, I want to say, and I remember playing that game all the way through like February of the next year, and then I moved out here to LA that following year, and I was still playing Nuka World and Far Harbor well after I moved out here. So yeah, that's probably, not counting Fallout 76 just because I sunk so many hours into that, it's probably my most played RPG of all time, and it doesn't run very well on the PS5 or even the Xbox Series X. Like, at launch of the Series X, they did update it to be able to run at 60 frames per second, but it is not a hard locked 60, and it's still kind of a muddy looking game. So to hear that Bethesda is going back and updating it to make it actually look and run well, like they have with Skyrim for the past decade or so, that gets me really excited, because Fallout kind of feels neglected by Bethesda when Elder Scrolls gets 50 different versions of the game. It's gotten re-released, it's gotten a special edition that improves the graphics and the frame rate, while Fallout 4 has just been sitting there on the wayside like, you ruined my franchise with Fallout 76's launch. So while yeah, unfortunately there's no firm release date on when we are going to get this update, and honestly it kind of feels like something you announce the same day you release it because it's really just a patch, it's cool to see that yes, next year we will be getting an update for Fallout 4, because this game's been on sale for like $5 so many times that it's a really nice move to see it improved like this, because they're not going to make any money off of it.